Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are going to completely dismantle a massive myth that holds so many of us back. Look, if you ever felt frustrated about falling off the wagon, whether it's with a new diet, trying to stick to a fitness routine, or even just a simple reading goal, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating science of building good habits and breaking bad ones, drawing directly from James Clear's phenomenal research on atomic habits. We're going to systematically break down the whole willpower myth and show you exactly how to build a life of automatic success.
Let's be real for a second. Why do we constantly fail to stick to new routines? I mean, we all want to become better, right? Stronger, healthier, more creative. We get super inspired, maybe we watch a highly motivational video, and we start doing things differently. But then, almost like clockwork, a few weeks go by and we're right back to square one. Why? Because relying on motivation and sheer willpower is literally the core reason most people struggle. Motivation is completely fickle. It comes, it goes. We absolutely cannot rely on it as the engine for long-term change.
Instead, we have to look at how our brains actually operate on a daily basis. Get this, researchers at Duke University uncovered a pretty staggering statistic. They found that about 40% of our behaviors on any given day aren't conscious decisions at all. They are driven purely by automatic habits. Just think about that for a second. Nearly half of your entire day is running on autopilot. Your life right now is essentially just the sum of these tiny automated routines. So here is our cognitive roadmap for today's explainer. We're covering the willpower myth, layer 1, core identity, layer 2, environment design, layer 3, habit stacking, and finally, tracking and small wins. Let's get right into it.
All right, kicking things off with layer 1, core identity.
You know, when most of us set goals for the new year, we actually do it completely backward. We focus entirely on the outcome we want to achieve rather than the type of person we want to become. To understand why this is such a mistake, imagine behavior change is like a giant onion with 3 layers. That outer layer, that's outcomes, changing your results, like losing weight or writing a book. The middle layer is processes, changing your systems, like your gym routine. But that innermost, deepest layer, that's identity. It's about changing your beliefs, your worldview, and your self-image. True, lasting change absolutely has to start at this deepest level, because your current behaviors are simply a reflection of your current identity. And this comparison brilliantly illustrates the difference. Let's look at these 2 mindsets. An outcome-based goal says, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's totally 100% focused on the finish line. But an identity-based goal shifts the entire paradigm. It says, I am the type of person who moves more every day. Building an identity-based habit completely shifts your focus away from the result you want and puts it squarely on the type of person who actually gets those results. But, how do you actually adopt a new identity? You don't need some massive overnight lifestyle shift. You just have to prove your new identity to yourself using highly practical, small wins. Want to be a person who moves more? Grab a pedometer and just walk 50 extra steps today. Tomorrow, maybe walk 100. Want to be a writer? Just write 1 single paragraph every day this week. Want to be strong? Knock out a few push-ups every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. With every little action, you are literally casting votes for the exact type of person you want to become.
Now that we've got our internal identities set, let's look externally. Welcome to layer 2, environment design.
We so often think we just need a really good reason or a sudden burst of motivation to do something hard. But the truth is, your physical surroundings usually overpower your internal motivation. Let me share this absolutely fascinating study by researchers Eric Johnson and Daniel Goldstein. They looked at organ donation rates across Europe, specifically comparing 2 neighboring countries, Denmark and Sweden. Now, these 2 nations share massive geographic, cultural, and social similarities. You'd expect their citizens to act pretty much the exact same way, but they found a drastic difference, and it all came down to a simple, everyday form. Denmark used an opt-in form, meaning you physically check a box if you want to donate. Sweden used an opt-out form, where you check the box if you do not want to donate. Now, what's really wild about these numbers is the massive disparity. Only 4% of people in Denmark opted in, while almost 86% of the population in Sweden stayed opted in as donors. I mean, are Swedish people magically 80% more selfless? No way, not at all. They were simply reacting to the default option of their environment. As the researchers perfectly noted, in most cases, the majority of people choose the default option to which they were assigned. So let me ask you, are you relying on sheer willpower every single day when you should really just be changing your default option? If there's a cookie sitting out on the counter, you're gonna eat it, or, well, I definitely will. If your couch faces the TV, you're going to turn it on. You are simply reacting to the cues around you. The good news is, you can actually design your environment for success by reducing the steps for good habits and throwing up hurdles for bad ones. Want to eat more vegetables? Buy dark green plates. It sounds crazy, but you'll automatically serve yourself 30% more dark green foods like spinach and broccoli. Want to watch way less TV? Toss the remote in a drawer and put a book in its place. Layer workout clothes out the night before to remove that morning friction. Put a bowl of flossers right next to your toothbrush so you literally cannot miss it. These tiny tweaks create an environment where success just happens automatically. Which brings us perfectly to layer 3, habit stacking. Let's geek out on the neuroscience for a second, because this is the biological mechanism that securely links our internal identity in our external environment together to make new behaviors stick. To understand habit stacking, we have to talk about a process called synaptic pruning. Synapses are basically the connections between the neurons in your brain. As we age, our brains quite literally prune away the connections that we aren't using, and they heavily build up the connections we use all the time. It's a physical, biological change that makes repetitive behaviors faster and way more efficient. This is brilliantly illustrated when we compare newborn babies to adults. Researchers at Oxford found that the average adult actually has 41% fewer neurons than a newborn. So yes, we are all quite literally losing our minds as we age. Babies have brains like a totally blank canvas, lots of neurons, but very weak connections between them. Adults, on the other hand, have pruned away all that excess, but the connections that remain are incredibly strong. That is exactly why you can brew your morning coffee or take a shower on complete autopilot. Those neural pathways, they're basically superhighways. Psychologists often talk about an implementation intention, which is basically just a fancy term for a plan you make beforehand to pair a new habit with a specific time and location. Something like, I will exercise at 6 a.m. at the gym. It's a really great tool, but we can actually take this a step further and hack right into those superhighways our brain has already built. And that brings us to the habit stacking formula. Rather than picking some arbitrary time and location, you take a new habit and you stack it directly on top of a current habit that you already do every single day. The formula is incredibly simple. Step 1, identify a current habit. Step 2, say after or before I do my current habit, I will do my new habit. By doing this, you're implicitly building the time and location directly into a cue that your pruned adult brain already processes automatically. Let's look at a few really powerful examples of this in action. After I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or after I sit down to dinner, I will say one thing I am grateful for. Or how about when I close my laptop for lunch, I will do 10 push-ups next to my desk. Notice how incredibly specific these are? Vague goals like I should read more or I want to eat better fail because they lack clear instruction. The trigger absolutely must be specific, actionable, and tied to something you already do without fail. All right, time for our final piece of the puzzle, tracking and small wins. As you stack these new habits and alter your environment, you need a way of visually chain these behaviors together to build some serious momentum over time. So the crucial point is, you've got to keep score, but keep it simple. Just look at the standard habit tracker template. It is beautifully straightforward. Every day you prove your new identity. Even if it's literally just doing 10 push-ups or walking 50 steps, you mark it down. This visual proof of your small wins is incredibly motivating. It creates a chain of success that you just won't want to break, reinforcing that deep identity level change we talked about at the very beginning. Let's bring it all back to this really powerful summary. The environment you surround yourself with determines the default actions that you take. Seriously, stop beating yourself up for a lack of willpower. Motivation is a total myth when it comes to long-term consistency. Instead, focus your energy on redesigning your environment, establishing clear default systems, and stacking tiny identity-proving behaviors right onto your existing daily routines. I want to leave you with this final lingering thought. Don't worry about the big results right now. Don't focus on the weight or the money or that massive end goal. Just ask yourself, what identity do you want to build starting tomorrow? Decide who you want to be, tweak your environment to make it the default, and then go grab your very first small win. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now go out there and build some atomic habits.